Right, buckle up buttercup because today's political drama is more twisted than a pretzel factory explosion. We've got Labour politicians throwing shade at each other faster than a cricket match commentary, and at the centre of it all? A bloody great runway that's causing more arguments than pineapple on pizza. Welcome back to UK Daily Coffee, where we serve up your political caffeine fix stronger than your morning espresso and twice as bitter. So picture this, you're Rachel Reeves, sitting pretty as Chancellor, probably sipping champagne and thinking about all the lovely economic growth you're going to kickstart. Then suddenly, your own party member, the Mayor of London himself, Sadiq Khan, comes charging in like a bull in a china shop, absolutely losing his marbles over your brilliant Heathrow expansion plans. It's like watching your favourite sitcom characters have a massive row, except these people actually control our lives and this isn't bloody funny anymore. But here's where it gets absolutely mental. We're not just talking about building another runway here, oh no. We're talking about completely rerouting the M25 because apparently what Britain really needs right now is more motorway chaos. Because clearly, sitting in traffic for 3 hours to travel 20 miles isn't quite British enough yet. We need to make it properly impossible to get anywhere. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening here. Rachel Reeves, bless her economic heart, is basically saying we need this third runway like we need oxygen. Economic growth, she cries. Investment opportunities. Export potential. She's practically doing cartwheels over the prospect of hundreds of thousands more flights thundering over London every year. Meanwhile, Sadiq Khan is standing there like the party pooper at a children's birthday, going on about noise pollution and climate targets like some sort of environmental killjoy. Now, before you think this is just another boring political spat between colleagues, let me tell you why this matters to your daily existence. Because when politicians start fighting like cats in a sack, it's usually us regular folks who end up getting scratched. And this particular catfight could determine whether you'll be listening to jet engines at 3 in the morning or whether your commute becomes even more hellish than it already is. Here's what's really cooking in this political kitchen nightmare. Heathrow wants to build this third runway so badly they're willing to completely reshape West London's infrastructure. We're talking about moving the M25 motorway, which is basically like performing heart surgery while the patient is running a marathon. The logistics alone are enough to give a project manager nightmares for decades. But wait, there's more. Enter stage left, hotel tycoon Surinder Arora, swooping in like some sort of aviation superhero with his own rival proposal. His plan apparently doesn't require moving the M25, which immediately makes it sound less insane than the original idea. It's like comparing being punched in the face to being gently slapped, technically better, but you're still getting hit. Arora's throwing around figures of under £25 billion for his scheme, which sounds absolutely astronomical until you remember that Heathrow's original estimate was £14 billion back in 2018, and we all know how government cost estimates work out. By the time they're finished, we'll probably be looking at enough money to buy a small country, or at least rent Wales for a few decades. The timing of this whole debacle couldn't be more perfect if it was scripted by a comedy writer having a nervous breakdown. Here we have Labour, supposedly united in their mission to fix Britain's economic woes, and they can't even agree on whether building a massive runway is a good idea. It's like watching a three-legged race where both participants are trying to run in different directions. Sadiq Khan isn't mincing his words either. He's basically saying that hundreds of thousands of additional flights will turn London into some sort of aviation hellscape, with noise pollution that'll make living near a construction site seem peaceful. He's talking about air quality like London's atmosphere isn't already thick enough to chew, and climate targets like we haven't already missed most of them by miles. The mayor's also throwing around phrases like all options are on the table, which in political speak usually means I'm absolutely furious but I can't actually do much about it. It's the political equivalent of saying you're going to tell your mum on someone. City Hall will apparently carefully scrutinise the proposals, which sounds about as threatening as a strongly worded letter from your local parish council. But here's where it gets properly interesting from an economic perspective. Rachel Reeves isn't just throwing darts at a board and hoping for the best. She's looking at Britain's post-Brexit reality, where we desperately need to prove we're still relevant on the global stage. More flights mean more business connections, more tourism, more everything that makes the economic wheels turn faster than a hamster on Red Bull. The Chancellor's talking about making the UK more open and more connected, which sounds lovely until you remember that connecting usually means more people, more noise, and more infrastructure strain. It's like inviting the entire neighbourhood to your house party without checking if your toilet can handle the extra capacity. What's absolutely brilliant about this situation is how it perfectly encapsulates modern British politics. You've got the economic pragmatists on one side, desperately trying to generate growth by any means necessary, even if it means turning West London into an aircraft carrier. On the other side, you've got the environmental concerns, the quality of life issues, and the small matter of whether normal people can actually function in the chaos that would result. The transport infrastructure implications alone are enough to make a civil engineer weep into their morning coffee. We're talking about potentially the most complex construction project in British history, happening right in the middle of one of the world's busiest transport networks. It's like trying to perform surgery on someone who's juggling flaming torches while riding a unicycle. And let's talk about the planning system reforms that Reeves mentioned, because that's where this gets properly scary. Speeding up planning might sound efficient, but it also means less time for people to object to having their lives turned upside down by construction projects. It's democracy at the speed of a Formula One race, technically impressive, but probably going to end in a spectacular crash. The modernised airspace plans she's banging on about sound fantastic in theory, but airspace management is like trying to choreograph a ballet performed by drunk elephants. Every change has knock-on effects that ripple through the entire system, like throwing a brick into a pond, except the pond is full of very expensive aircraft carrying very nervous passengers. Here's what's really grinding my gears about this whole situation. While Labour politicians are having their public spat about runway expansion, normal people are still struggling to afford their energy bills, can't find decent housing, and are watching their local services get cut to ribbons. But sure, let's spend decades and billions arguing about whether we need more planes when half the country can't afford to get on one anyway. The environmental angle that Sadiq Khan's pushing isn't just tree-hugging nonsense either. London's air quality already makes Beijing look like a health spa on some days, and adding hundreds of thousands more flights isn't exactly going to help matters. Climate targets that we're already struggling to meet will become about as achievable as teaching cats to play football. But then again, economic growth is the holy grail that every politician chases like it's the last pint at closing time. Rachel Reeves genuinely believes that this runway expansion could be the key to unlocking Britain's economic potential, and she might not be completely wrong. More international connections could mean more business, more jobs, more tax revenue to fix all those other problems we've been ignoring. The hotel tycoon's alternative proposal adds another layer of complexity to this already confused situation. Surinder Arora suggesting he can achieve the same outcome without the motorway chaos, which sounds too good to be true because in politics, things that sound too good to be true usually are. Either he's figured out something that the professional airport planners missed, or his costings are about as accurate as a weather forecast for next Christmas. £25 billion might sound like a bargain compared to the escalating costs of the original proposal, but let's be honest here, when have major infrastructure projects ever come in on budget? The Channel Tunnel was supposed to cost £4.5 billion and ended up at nearly £15 billion. HS2 started at £32 billion and is now approaching God knows what astronomical figure. What we're really watching here is a masterclass in how modern politics works. You've got competing visions of Britain's future, legitimate concerns about environmental impact, massive economic stakes, and politicians trying to balance all of these while keeping their own careers intact. It's like watching someone try to solve a Rubik's Cube while riding a roller coaster during an earthquake. The fact that this is causing a rift within Labour itself shows just how complicated these decisions really are. This isn't about party politics or ideological differences, it's about fundamental questions of what kind of country we want to be. Do we prioritise economic growth at almost any cost, or do we try to balance progress with quality of life and environmental responsibility? Sadiq Khan's position isn't unreasonable when you think about it. As Mayor of London, his job is to represent the people who actually have to live with the consequences of these decisions. Easy for politicians in Westminster to talk about economic benefits when they're not the ones who'll be woken up by jet engines at 5 in the morning or stuck in traffic caused by massive construction projects. But Rachel Reeves isn't being unreasonable either. As Chancellor, she's looking at the bigger economic picture, trying to find ways to generate growth and investment in a challenging global environment. Britain needs to stay competitive, and sometimes that means making difficult decisions that not everyone will be happy with. The timing of all this is particularly interesting because it comes at a moment when Labour is trying to establish its economic credentials after years in opposition. They need to show they can make tough decisions and deliver results, but they also need to keep their environmental commitments and maintain support from urban voters who care about air quality and noise pollution. What's fascinating is how this conflict illustrates the broader challenges facing any government trying to balance economic growth with environmental concerns. These aren't abstract policy debates, they're real decisions that will affect millions of people's daily lives for decades to come. So where does this leave us regular folks who just want to get on with our lives without politicians arguing over our heads like divorced parents at a school sports day? Well, we're basically along for the ride whether we like it or not. If the expansion goes ahead, we'll get the economic benefits and the environmental costs. If it doesn't, we'll miss out on potential growth but keep our current levels of aviation-related misery. The really depressing part is that this whole debate could drag on for years while nothing actually gets built and the problems it's supposed to solve get worse. Meanwhile, other countries will be building their infrastructure and leaving us behind while we're still arguing about whether moving a motorway is a good idea. But here's the thing that really gets me about this whole situation: it perfectly demonstrates why politics in this country feels so frustrating to normal people. While Labour politicians are having their very public disagreement about airport expansion, there are homeless people sleeping rough, the NHS is struggling, schools need investment, and local councils are going bankrupt. But sure, let's spend months arguing about runways. That said, infrastructure decisions like this one genuinely matter for the long-term future of the country. Get it right, and Britain could benefit for generations. Get it wrong, and we're stuck with the consequences for just as long. So maybe it's worth having these arguments now rather than regretting our decisions later. The bottom line is this: whether you're Team Rachel Reeves and her economic growth runway dreams, or Team Sadiq Khan and his environmental protection concerns, we're all going to have to live with whatever decision gets made. And knowing how these things usually work out, it'll probably end up being some sort of compromise that satisfies nobody and costs twice as much as originally estimated. So there you have it, Labour's civil war over Heathrow expansion in all its chaotic glory. Politicians fighting, billions of pounds at stake, motorways potentially being moved, and normal people caught in the middle wondering whether they'll be able to afford the flights that these new runways are supposed to accommodate. What do you think about this whole mess? Are you Team economic growth at any cost, or Team protect the environment and quality of life? And more importantly, do you think any of these politicians actually know what they're doing, or are they just making it up as they go along like the rest of us? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching British politics implode in real time, and don't forget to subscribe to UK Daily Coffee for your regular dose of political chaos. Trust me, with the way things are going, there'll be plenty more drama to cover tomorrow. Until then, keep your coffee strong and your expectations of politicians very, very low.